Hi, this is Andy. I'm here at New York Comic Con 2013 with Mel Birnkrant of the Outer Space Toys, and he's going to talk about the original toys and also a bit leading to the new toys. How are you today, sir?
Very good, thank you. And really kind of bowled over because I can't believe what's happened. When we did the Outer Spaceman, there was no such thing as action figures. And so the crazy thing is, the thing that I want to really clear up, because a lot of people know a lot about the Outer Spaceman, but what they don't know, and what I've seen in print, which really upsets me actually, is that people say that it was like a failed toy line. It was anything but a failed toy line. It was an amazingly successful toy line that was flying off the shelves. They were created on purpose to go with Matt Mason, because Matt Mason didn't do a damn thing, but then they had the Outer Spaceman, so they could have guys he could interact with anyway. This thing was selling like crazy, and then Christmas was coming, and then they landed on the moon, and there was nothing there, and all space toys stopped selling. Matt Mason stopped selling, everything stopped selling. But Christmas came, and the Outer Spacemen were on a boat on the Atlantic Ocean, and there was a dock strike that lasted for 4 months. 4 months of intense television campaigning, and when the 4 months was over, the television was over, and then the Outer Spaceman came to the American shores too late. And the company that did the color forms made nothing but little stick-on things. They hated the Outer Spaceman. It was entirely cooked up by their owner and myself. We enforced it on the company. All they wanted to do was sell color forms, and the minute sales slowed down, they grabbed the opportunity to force their employer not to make the second series. And had he made the second series, our next project was going to be Buck Rogers, and our next project was going to be all the superheroes, and it took Mego 5 more years before they did anything. So that's where these fit into history. They are so goddamn rare, and I'm so damned old that they are the first action superhero action figures. It's exactly what they are. So here we are at Comic Con, and there's 100,000 people running around in their underwear as superheroes. And it kind of all started here, which is incredible to me. Anyway, these are the original epoxies that began it all. This is what was sent to the Orient that they based the second series on. Gary, they're not here. Gary just got the original boxes from the first series. This is what the first series sort of looked like. There they all are on the original cards. These are all from 1968. And nowadays, the Four Horsemen, for a brief period of time, took a pass at recreating these things. And they've done a fabulous job. And here they are over here. They've miniaturized them, unfortunately. But the sculpting is incredible.
So the original toys, they sold for a brief period in 68, 69?
Yes. And it's amazing to me because there's actually living human beings around here, younger than myself, of course, but who remember them when they were kids, which is really awesome. And these are all original. These are the ones from 1968.
Now, you said these are some of the original action figures. What was behind that? You're wanting to make toys in that particular format, in that form?
Well, we were just looking to make any kind of toy that would happen. Any toy that would take off, that would work. We were trying anything we could, and I saw Matt Mason and thought, well, I thought that was just really neat, but I could see that it needed something. We really tried hard to make it look like a Mattel product. We copied their packaging, we copied their accordion folds. It was created to be a Mattel product, really. And to be mistaken is one, I guess. And I thought I was doing them a favor because Matt Mason was just a guy and a bunch of stuff. It was, you know, I would call it an inaction figure because there was like nothing to do with it. And so we gave him something to do with it.
So what was unique and special about the Outer Spaceman then?
What was unique and special about it? Well, each one came from a different planet. Each one was colorful. Each one was a different size. There were 7 of them. All which goes to show we had no idea what we were doing. Because first of all, making 7 of anything doesn't make any kind of sense. At least you do 6 or 12. Making 7 is ridiculous. Everyone is a different size. They didn't know how to price them. The little guy was $1, the big guy was $2, and they didn't know where to cut it in the middle, where to start to go from $1 to $2. So the medium-sized guys, they lost money on them because they wanted to keep them at $1. But there they were, and each one had a little story, which I wrote the night before we sent them to the Orient. And it took me half an hour to write the story, but I'd been collecting the crap in my head all my life, I guess, so it was pretty easy to do. In fact, it actually took no longer to write the stories than it does to read them.
And what would you say the impact then is of the Outer Spaceman on action figures in the 70s?
Well, I don't know that because I dropped them and went on to something else. It just was part of my past. So they went into hibernation in my life, and it wasn't until years and years later that I saw some young man advertising for them for the second series. And I did them a favor and wrote them and said, "You're looking for something that doesn't exist." Because they'd seen them on the cover of this Colorform strip.
Oh, I see.
And that is, in fact, the reason the Four Horsemen knew about the Outer Spacemen, or that anybody still knows about them today, are these Space Warrior Colorform sets. And they came about, see, I was working then with Colorforms. I don't know if you know what they are. Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Well, suddenly Star Wars appeared, and space was no longer a dirty word. Everyone was clamoring for anything to do with space. So Kenner is a ruthless, mean-spirited company. They're really, I'm telling you the inside stuff here. They're about as mean as you can be, boy. And they, ordinarily, if a guy's got a property, like an action figure or something, they would gladly let it be licensed to Colorforms, because then there's more product like it. Someone doing t-shirts, fine, licensed t-shirts, licensed stuffed toys, licensed anything. Kenner wouldn't let any licenses out for anybody. They trapped it because they wanted to make sure that anyone going into the toy store for a Star Wars figure had no choice but to buy something they made. God forbid they should get away with $2 instead of $6.98. And so I said to the company, the Colorforms, I said, look, we'll make our own. So in 2 days, I put this thing together. I traced the original drawings for the plastic from the original model boards for the first figures. I color penciled in a crazy background. Colorforms backgrounds have to be mostly blank anyway. And this is a photograph. I thought, well, let's sneak in the new figures that didn't happen. So I got Colorforms to send me a new set because God wasn't going to break up my set. And we posed this photograph. And it's this photograph of this box. That's the reason that most people who knew about the Outer Spacemen knew about them because of this box. And they looked at that and they thought they must exist, but they don't.
All right.
So these two young guys are advertising for these things, and I write and tell them that they don't exist.
Okay.
Well, they turned out to be rabid fans. I mean, like, they lived for this stuff. And they had actually had one of these figures, the Colossus Rex, the big guy. When they were little kids, they had him, they played in the backyard with him, and they lost him. In their 20s, they dug up the entire backyard looking for this thing. I thought, if they can do that, you know, I had pity on them, and I sold them the actual figures that were photographed from that box for a very, very reasonable price.
Wow.
And that sort of let the word out. People started coming to me, and I had a stock of these things. So another guy came and pretended he was writing an article about them. So he had a tape recorder and he wrote down everything he said. When the tape stopped, the interview stopped abruptly. And he conned me into selling the set of figures for $1,500. I later learned he sold them the next day for $5,000.
Wow.
And I said, wait a minute, what the heck is... Outer Spaceman hadn't crossed my mind for 30 years. Well, then I catched on to... And then, so I started bringing them to Atlantic City because I was trying to pretend to be a dealer there because I was there to buy antique toys, which is my passion. So all of this is only a means to buy comic character toys. And I've just put my whole collection on the website, melbirnkrant.com. and it's all there. My whole life's passion is there for everyone to check it out, because obviously that's all that's going to happen with it. There's not going to be a book, and there's not going to be a museum come to get it, so there's a record of it. Anyway, I think that's my commercial.
Okay.
And there's no money in for me. And
Okay.
so anyway, what happened then? So I was there as a dealer, and I brought the Outer Spaceman there, and along came Gary, who's now my partner, and he went absolutely nuts. And they, in a crazy kind of way, became his life. He is so obsessed with these things. So slowly but surely, he's acquired everything that I've got. He's got more things which he's yet going to acquire, and one day he will own every outer space thing in the universe. Later on, in a show like this, the Four Horsemen came around, and they remembered some of these figures as a kid. And the rest is history. They're remaking them. They're incredibly talented. I love what they're doing. There's not a thing about any of them that isn't perfect, except for terra firma's flag. And there you go. That's the story.
Wow, that's fantastic, and I think it's great that you brought a lot of the older figures here to show people and on display and to sell some stuff, and I think it's really amazing.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.